Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Well, having spent time as a property developer in Hungary, Dubliner Oisín Hanrahan hit the big time with his business, Handy.com. Following the sale of this business, Oisín is now launching a new marketplace venture called Keychain, for which he has already secured $18 million in funding. Oisín, you're no stranger to fundraising, as you secured over $100 million for your previous venture, Handy. So what's the secret?
Great to be talking to you, Karl. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Oh, my goodness. That's a big question. I recall the first time we raised money for Handy, it would have been back in 2011, 2012, so 10, 12 years ago now. And I remember doing meeting after meeting after meeting, trying to convince investors that people would book home services online. And if you think back to 2011, you think back to 2012, people were just starting to use Airbnb. They were just starting to use services like Uber. No one was using anything like DoorDash or Uber Eats or any of those things yet. And person after person told us there's no way people are going to buy home services online. There's no way anyone's going to book a cleaner or a plumber online. And at the time, we were, starting to build a business without any capital, really. And we had a couple of people who just believed in the idea, who said, yeah, you know what, I think this actually does make sense. So I think there's something in this idea of finding people whose idea resonates with yours, and finding people, not people who want to say no, but people who actually want to say yes, because they can see something that the rest of the world can't yet see.
And talk to us about Handy and what you did that made that venture so successful.
Handy was started with the idea that it's really hard to find a cleaner or a handyman or a plumber or an electrician for small, everyday tasks. And we built that business with that very simple idea that if you make it really easy to book a handyman, that people will transact on the platform, they'll buy from you. And we built that business to, well over $100 million of revenue. And it was both direct to consumer, and we had some interesting partnerships with big retailers. But I think at every point in the journey, it was about finding real problems that people wanted a solution for, by finding real ways that we could make a difference to homeowners and to consumers. And similarly for professionals, for service pros, for handyman and painters and cleaners, it was about making it incredibly easy for them to earn money. And I think that focus on solving a real problem is what helped us scale the business.
And what worked from a marketing perspective in terms of raising the profile of that business, actually putting it on people's radar in the first instance?
Yeah, the business was built initially on, every type of local marketing you can imagine. So the very first way that we got customers for Handy is we went around. We were living, myself and my co-founder were living in Boston at the time. And we went around and we flyered doors. We put flyers on doors saying handyman and cleaners available. Go to handy.com, or I think it was actually called Handybook at the time. I don't think we could afford to buy the Handy domain yet. So it was on handybook.com. Go to handybook.com to book a handyman or a cleaner. And then we came to New York and we did the same thing. And we literally went around and we were flyering doors. And then we hired a team of people to go around flyering doors. And that worked. So that strategy of saying, okay, let's go really local and let's find a set of customers in an area. And then those customers became advocates for the platform, and they would go and refer their friends, they refer neighbors. And then you'd have a lot of handyman and a lot of cleaners in an area, and people would see them. So it was really about driving local on the ground marketing. And we took that theme then and we drove it into local radio. We started doing subway ads where we would buy a percentage of the New York subway trains, the advertising on them. And then we went into local TV and eventually scaled it all the way out to doing bigger national TV buys as well.
Having sold Handy then for an undisclosed amount, you're ready to embark on your next entrepreneurial adventure with Keychain. So what is Keychain all about?
We sold Handy in 2018 to a company called Angie's List. And then we put the businesses together, and there was a third business as well, and we rebranded all of them to Angie. And then I actually took on the CEO role of that parent company. So I was the CEO of Angie for a while and ran that business. And when I left that, it was a public company at the end of last year. It was climbing up and doing nearly $2 billion of revenue, multiples of that going through the platform in terms of gross merchandise value. So, it was a big, complicated business with 7,000 people working there when I left it. And I took a step back and I said, look, what am I going to do next? Like, what do I want to think about building? And what I realized was I'd spent a lot of time building marketplaces. So inside Angie, there was, a listings business, there was an advertising business, there was a services business, but really they were marketplaces. And I have been fascinated by building these kind of marketplace businesses for, effectively my since 2011. So over a decade of figuring out how to build and scale and run these marketplaces. And that was what I realized I wanted to do all over again. So I wanted to start and build another online marketplace. And I got really excited about the idea of doing it in a new category. And the category we're building in is in food and beverage and packaged goods manufacturing, which, you might think of as not a very exciting category, but it actually affects all of us every single day. So you think about going to the grocery store, you go into a Spar or a Centra in or a Tesco or a Dunnes Stores in Ireland, and you walk the aisles and you pick up something off the shelf. The chances are the product that you pick up off the shelf isn't actually made by the manufacturer whose name is on the box. And, you rewind 10, 15 years ago, most products actually were made by the manufacturer on the box. But we've had such a growth in private label, so own brand product or white label product or store product. We've had such growth in these custom brands, whether they be dairy-free or nut-free or gluten-free brands. And we've had such change in consumer preferences away from, more traditional product into, lactose-free milk or low sugar and low carb products, that the products now are very, more than half of the products are actually not made by the manufacturer or by the name on the box. There's a whole other ecosystem of companies making product. And what we realized was there's no way for brands and retailers to interact with those manufacturers in a structured way. It's all about trade shows and brokers and real lack of transparency. And what we realized was that's a very similar problem to when we started building Handy and when we scaled Angie's List. It's just in a different vertical. You have two sides of a marketplace that are trying to meet. You have manufacturers that want to do business with brands and retailers, and you have brands and retailers that really are looking for great manufacturers that they can work with. So what we're building at Keychain is a platform that better matches brands and manufacturers with retailers. And we think if we do that, we can actually help brands put better product on the shelf.
Oisín, how big of an opportunity is this?
It's enormous. So if you go to the U.S. to start with, there's over $500 billion, so it's $500 billion of spend every year on packaged goods that are made by manufacturers that are not the main brand on the box. And when you think about numbers that big, it's almost you think you should be talking about government bonds or national debt to try to wrap your head around how big $500 billion is. But it's just an enormous. It's just an enormous market that affects so many people at massive scale, and that's before you think about the international dimension here. So we're going to start with food and beverage manufacturers in the U.S., of which there's 10,000 plus. Then we'll expand into Canada, Mexico, and quickly after that we'll layer on international manufacturers as well. So the goal is to build a truly global platform.
And what strategies will you implement to achieve scale with this business?
We built out a small team of about 40 folks, and we are doing frontline research on manufacturers and products, and we're building out a unique product and manufacturer data asset that we think will really bring on great retailers and brands onto the platform. And the same way that we partnered with major retailers the first time when we built Handy, we will look at partnerships with some of the biggest retailers in the world to use this platform for their sourcing of product.
And Oisín, you've been immersed in the US business environment for a number of years now, but what could Ireland learn from the US when it comes to supporting startups?
I think there's easy, obvious answers to that turn out to be very hard to actually implement in practice. It's not any one single thing that creates an environment that's successful. I think Ireland has done a particularly good job, over the last decade and a half. I remember first starting something, well over 10, 12, 13 years ago in Ireland, and the environment around starting things then was very different to the environment we've got today. And that's everything from the taxation environment around options and employee incentives to the capital environment where today there's half a dozen venture funds that focus on this, on tech startups, to the community, and whether it's the co-working spaces to the incubators. So I think Ireland has done a very good job of advancing the community that's needed. The more that Ireland can continue to help companies really think about market entry, whether it's into the UK or Europe or the US, as early as possible in their journey, I think the better it is, because it's very important to build these businesses. If you truly plan to build them for scale, to actually build them with a scale mindset, early on.
If anyone listening this morning was considering starting a business in that marketplace area, what's the secret sauce?
The thing we talk about a lot in marketplaces is you need one side of the marketplace to need it really badly. So you don't need both sides. In a dream world, yes, you have both sides of the marketplace experiencing chronic need for the solution you're proposing to exist. But if you have one side that needs it really badly, and you have the other side of the marketplace that wants it, that's interested and wants it, then that's like the bare minimum. The other piece of advice I give, and it's about marketplaces, but it's also just more general, is at any point in time, there's like big waves of change happening in the world. You think about the platform shifts that have happened, the move to mobile, obviously a huge one of data at this point. But there's like big waves of technical change or societal change happening. And you don't have to be, catching the wave and riding it perfectly, but you really don't want to be swimming against that wave of change. So you want to pick a marketplace, or you want to pick an area where people are really, where one side of your market really wants you, and you also just don't want to be going against the tide of what the big macro changes in the world are. Like obviously, there's a huge shift at the moment in energy transition. The shift towards green energy. Like there's it's not to say that you have to catch that wave and make your business, based on the energy transition. But doing something counter to that at this point is like a really hard thing to do. So make sure you position yourself so that you're not going against these big waves that are going on in society at any point in time.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Oisín Hanrahan from Keychain, and his success should certainly inspire budding Irish entrepreneurs to think big.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.